I was having a church before. I was having a tradition church,
Yeah.
but I was not multiplying. I didn't know about multiplication and doing discipleship. We are not just doing like any tradition church. But when we got trained, I see it was very simple. It was very simple. Yeah, we get simple tools to use, and that's where now I started to reach many people as much as possible. And I trained my uh, our disciples, people who are believers there. We all now started. Everyone was very happy and was interested with the two tools, and everyone was going out and reaching other people and doing now starting house churches now. It was just a symbol because there was a barrier whereby we were thinking that before you do some discipleship or reaching other people, you have to look for the church, to build a church, to have a plot, to have sightings, and it was so expensive. But when we get this right tool, it was very simple to start house churches. Everybody was releasing the authority, telling everyone to go and share the gospel, and the house churches was growing very well, coming with a good number.
What drew you to it was Joey Gordy and Justin White? How did you connect with them?
Okay, I connect with them through one brother from England. We met with in social media called Alex, sorry.
Alex, yeah.
And he introduced me to Joy. And after introducing me to Joy, Joy called me and tell me, "Can you come to Nairobi? You can meet, and then I can share something with you." I say, "Yes, I can come." And that time now I go to Nairobi. They share to me. I invite. They come to my place. They train. They train all believers there, and now we start from there and leave everything. Those what we are doing as a tradition church, we put off that and start now new tools to use.
What drew you to them? What was in your heart that connected with Joey and Justin?
What connected me? Okay, let's say first. Let me take you a little bit back so that you can know my story. Before I was in a big one of the big churches in Kenya. I was an overseer in the years since 2001 up to 2011. In 2011, I had God calling me. And when God called me and said that this is not the work I assign you to do, and I was now starting thinking, what is this happening now? God was telling me that the Spirit of God was telling me that to go to another country, and that country I did not be. I have never been out of the country before. And God, the Spirit of God was pushing me to go to another country to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ there. But I was very worried because I have never been out of the country before. And that year, I choose to listen to the Spirit of God. And I told people, because I was a leader of that church, I was overseeing some churches. I told my brother, that one of my brothers, that I want to go. God is telling me to move to reach people and reach people. So that in 2011, I decided to listen, and I asked God, where can I go now? I said I can go because if God needs me to go there, I will go. So when I reach there, I find people don't know English. So I was worried. Was really God sending me to this place because nobody is speaking to me about it. I try to speak to, and everybody say no, we don't know what you are telling. They show me with their hands. I go to another person. I met a person from Uganda, and I tried to speak to him, asking him about a place, an hotel. He told me, "Where are you coming from?" I told him, "I'm coming from Kenya." He told me, "Okay, can you see that building?" I told him, "Yeah, I can see that building." He told me that you can go there because those are Kenyan people and they have an hotel. They are running hotel there. Okay, I say, "Thank you, brother," because I feel now God is showing me the way. When I reach in the hotel, entering the hotel, I find a old man there. I greet him, and he was asking me, "Where are you coming from?" I told him, "I'm coming from Kenya." He asked me which place in Kenya. I told him Molo. Told me, okay, I'm coming from Molo, and in fact, he's from my tribe, and it's not far. It's like a relative again. He told me, what are you doing here? I told him I am coming to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Oh, he said, wow, that's good. Do you have a place to stay here? I told him I don't have any place. I don't know anybody here. He told me, okay, I will give you a place and you will stay there. You will have food there until you will go back, until you will finish your mission and go back. I see God from that time. And he provided me with everything. And I stayed there. I started to sharing the gospel in Juba. And after some month, he told me that there is a place where many people can speak Swahili, and you can share it with them. It is about of Congo and around Central Africa and Sudan. So I went there. That's where now we meet with many guys, and I share to them, and they agree. I open a church. We open a church there, and for some few days we open another church. Now I understand that for sure God needs me to reach and reach people. It's not my work to stay in the in one place. So when I come back in 2013, now people now in my area, the leaders from the church which I was serving, I found a letter from the head office that you cannot work with us because you are working with different things which we are not planning to you. So please don't come again to the church. So I say thank you Lord, because now I know what I can do. So I start there now, reaching and reach people and start a church without any umbrella, any leadership. So I started the church. We are now Cody and Joy, Joy and Justin met me there, working there. So the Spirit of God now disconnect me with those people. Now I get a chance now to work for the Lord. And when I find Justin and Joy, that was now, it's like now I have a good place, a nice people to work with them, and a good tools that I was lacking before. And I see this is the real mission now I was looking for. I hope that the Spirit of God was disconnecting me with those tradition churches now and start a new thing in my life because of my calling on what God needs me to do. There were some believers, we have been praying with them, gathering as a church. Now I invite them that we have a new tools, we have to use these tools and things will be different. So we have to be trained and understand how to use it. So I invite believers and even those non-believers and other people who have been believers in different churches or different denominations. So I invite everybody there. So, yeah, currently we have over 60 churches now.
So 60 new churches and new believers in those churches.
Yeah. And now we are even having a training now for mid-level, so that we can do filter on those who are active now. The new churches since we enter this year, we have not record, but we are now moving in this second quarter. We will know every church is another new church. I hope it will be over 70 now. Around 15 churches were started by ordinary pastors, and others are started by new believers. Yeah.
So about 10 of the 60 churches are by pastors starting churches, and about 50 are ordinary believers, even new believers starting churches.
Yeah, sure. There are some battles we have been fighting with, mainly it's because other people like pastors, I've been interacting with many leaders in our country, but now they see I've put off many things now to do with them, and they see it's like I'm not in the right way, I'm not doing the right thing, I'm now training people different things which is not going with the tradition churches, like I'm not honoring leadership now. and I'm training some. Many times when we reach many people, we can find some people who are believers, and when they get this training, they can change their mind and go to start house churches. That's a big fight now with those people of tradition church, like pastors and tradition leaders. Now, but it cannot affect anything, because when someone decided to do work for the Lord, nobody is punishing them, or it is impossible to punish them. Now we have reached different counties in Kenya, around 7 counties, different counties. We have house churches there. So moving now is some difficult in training. That's what we are facing. So that's a challenge we are been facing most of the time. But we thank God, because we have never stopped again. So God is giving me a vision on how to reach these people and show them the way to reach the world. Because now there is many people, they don't know. People now are not reaching, especially here in Kenya. They are not doing any more discipleship. There is a lot of competition in churches. Someone can go out and say, okay, this is a good thing to do. I can raise a church and build a church with my money, and then people can come in. I find a lot of, it's like a business. So many people are lost. It's not even at Kenya only. It's many different places in the world. And now God is speaking to me most of the time that go and reach people, make them to be my disciples, and show them how to do my Great Commission. And many people have been changed, because they see that now this is a biblical thing that Jesus was telling us, that we can reach the world with this, not what we have been doing before.
And we don't offer any salaries. We have no jobs. We have no positions. What we do offer is training. And if brothers and sisters are being faithful, we offer a lot of relationship and brotherhood. And so that's kind of how we approach those type of contacts. So reached out to 3 or 4 of them. Robert was the only one who said, sure, I would like that. So at that point, Robert lived about 5 hours north of us. As the crow flies, it's not very far, but as the African car drives, quite far. So he has a son. By the way, he's a very humble man. He won't maybe tell you all of this, but he has 7 kids. Several of them are out of the house. He's a little older than I am, and so a little bit more mature with his family life. And so 1 or 2 of them at that time were living in Nairobi, and he told me he had to come down and visit. He also runs a small sort of secondhand clothing store to meet his family budget. And so that requires him to come down to Nairobi once every week, once every 2 weeks, gather big bales of clothes, at very discount prices, shipped from other parts of the world, puts them on the bus, and he sorts them and sells them. So he was down here. And I had learned this trick from my good friend Justin, that if you really want to cast a filter for people, don't invite them for coffee or to a restaurant, but invite them into the harvest. So that's something I've learned from Justin. So it happened to be the day he was down that I was in a Muslim harvest context, and it was quite cool. We had a small church start going. That church, by the way, didn't last much longer, but we were meeting regularly once a week in a Muslim area, and we were doing harvest. So I said, Robert, here's where I will be. Welcome. And he met me, which is unusual. Normally that filter gets rid of most. He had never, I think, he hadn't had much experience, he told me at that point, of sharing with a lot of Muslims. And so he was intrigued to just watch. So he shows up, it just follows me around. We were out sharing the gospel, just typical stuff. He had no training. We hadn't met up before. This is the first time we met. And so we're on the street. So the training was, I'm going to show you how to share a quick testimony. Now you go do that. But we did it together. And then here's a quick, we used the Two Kingdoms tool, and he jumped right in. And then we did about an hour of that, hour and a half of that. And then we jumped into someone's house in that same neighborhood for Commands of Christ, a 3/3 type meeting. And he was just mesmerized. He's like, wow, this was very interesting. I had no idea that things could go this way. And so that was our first interaction. I feel like from that first few hours, he was in. Like he just needed to see it happen. He needed to see people sharing the gospel. Of course, nothing, revolutionary happened on the street. Like most of the Muslims just completely rejected us, but he didn't care. He was just so excited to see that happen. And then even in the home, that was a pretty cool scenario, because in that home we were training several Ethiopians, just helping them understand house church and how that works. And so he was just exposed to some new cultures and some new ideas. And I felt like immediately was in. We sat down with Robert that day, gave him, made sure he understood the very simple basic tools to teach others. And that was just the stuff we had used that day, which he had seen. The tools of, simple testimony, a simple gospel presentation. And he had been exposed to an early discipleship type meeting. We call it 5 parts, but it's similar to the 3/3. And so I knew that not all of that would stick, but just refresh them. He went back home, again, 5 hours north of us, and began implementing what he remembered, what he knew, which was remarkable. Always remarkable when people pass on as little as they know. He then phoned me a week, 2 weeks later. He's coming back through town, sat down with me and said, brother, if we do this the way you're suggesting, we'll start a movement. Like there was no high level vision on this. No one had given him, hey, we're here to start a movement, and God wants to use you to start a movement. But I think he had just realized, very intuitive actually, realized if you release people with these simple things, then you're empowering them. And if you're empowering them, they may actually go and do something with this, and people may come to faith and start groups in their homes. This is going to get out of control. And so his concern with the movement, as exciting as that sounds, was, what do we do about leadership? Like, if we actually go down this road any further, we're going to have a mess on our hands with no leaders trained. It was amazing, like, how thought through. So at that point, he's with Justin and I said, what a wonderful question. Like, that's really what we love to focus on, is helping you raise up leaders, not only within the house church setting, but even actually who can go further than any of us could ever go. So you have that duality of leadership, both within the church and then those who are sent beyond the local context. And so that's kind of been the focus, actually, since our first and second meeting, is how do we get the leadership development to where it can be sustained within an emerging movement.
And how quick was he to start implementing what you were teaching him? What did he do back home?
So quick. So we, like, as soon as he had that question, we did some, like, over the dinner table type trainings just with him. He spent a lot of time with Justin. Just you have to understand too, when he comes through town now, he just stays with Justin or one of our teammates in town. So there's a lot of time around the dinner table. Yes, there is some, like, training happening, but mostly it's just relationship and coaching on a regular basis, where he is receiving everything. I think the DNA is set on relationship, which has been key with Robert. He he then has been able to take everything that he gets here and transfer it in his context. Pretty soon, so let's say maybe 3 weeks, a month into our relationship with Robert, we had a team of volunteers from the U.S. with us, and 2 or so of them went up to where he lives with me, and we did some training in his like home congregation. Here's what we found on the first touch in his village. So Robert had been part of a large denomination, had been in a form of leadership, which I believe he calls overseer, but similar to the idea of a bishop. And the Lord had called him to go to the country of South Sudan. He'll tell that story better, but when the Lord called him back from South Sudan, the church denomination that he was a part of gave him an ultimatum, to sort of come back under their auspices to, in a sense, trying to control him, and he decided to leave that denomination. When he left it, he felt the Lord asking him to start a church. And so all he knew at that point was what he had been taught. And that was to go to a village or to a town, gather people and, find a piece of land, put up a structure, start a church. And so he had, I don't know exactly when that started. I don't have my time frame exactly down, but I can fast forward to when we did our first training there. It was just as I described. It was in a village, the same village where he lives. He had moved there for the purpose of starting this church, and so his family was there. And the people from the village gathered for training. There was a ton of children, and it was just kind of a traditional church setting, with mud floors. And I think we probably had 100 people for a day and a half, 2 days of training. We did very basic. No, that's not true. We had about 40 people for training. And in the evenings, he used it as an outreach, kind of like a revival service type outreach, which we didn't know we were going to be doing. But I think in his mind, this is what you do. You bring in outsiders, you call everybody from the village, and you get to, you sing songs and you share the gospel and you do a bit of teaching. But so we did that those 2 days. And then we went out sharing the gospel in among the village. And he began to see things were not as he assumed. He's come from a traditional church setting, and so we weren't really there to, in a sense, build church buildings and structures, and so that was helpful for him. We talked through that around his dinner table as we stayed in his house, as thinking through, like, how do we release authority into homes? So it's a revolutionary concept for a person like Robert. And so from that first training, we had one of our good friends come back, I think the very next week, and did training in homes. So they found houses of peace in and around that same village, and they began training people in their homes and modeling basic early discipleship through a 3/3 process. That was when sort of the gears began to click into place for him, when he saw it in his own context. He had seen it in Nairobi a bit. He'd gotten training. He had been passing off the evangelism pieces, fields 1 and 2, a little bit as he went back. And now he was beginning to see the importance of meeting in homes and training in homes and starting groups in the homes. And so at this point, you're, a month and a half into this training process, and he's beginning to focus more and more on the homes. I think some of the things that really stick out about Robert are he has a tremendous amount of humility. That's such a huge. It's a sign of just the Spirit of God working in a man's life when he has been through so many events in life. He's older than us, us meaning older than everyone else on our team. He is, he's been a bishop of a certain denomination. He's been a missionary to another country. He started churches, yet he's exceptionally teachable. And so his humility comes out in teachability and questions. He's quite a gentle man. So I think that's a huge piece. I've just seen so much character in him. Again, he's supporting his family with 7 kids, running a small business. So there's a strong work ethic of caring for his own people. And I often find like there's these things that keep popping up where they ran out of money for a training because he's trying to push the gospel further and further. So they ran out of money. And so he called his wife back home and they sold their family sheep. Like I think he had 2 sheep at that point so that they could feed people at the training. There's just sacrificial benchmarks as we watch the progress in Robert's life, that the Lord has done an amazing work already in his heart, that he counts nothing more valuable than the kingdom of God, right? He's just seeking God's kingdom first, including selling sheep, working hard for his family, all those things to put the kingdom first. And then I would say the story as Robert shares it, he's been in the faith a long time, various levels of discipleship or church formation in his life, and understandings of the Bible. But I think the Lord has put him through some really interesting scenarios, like calling him to go to South Sudan where he knows nobody. And he did it. He laid down a lot of things to do that. That's just seeking first God's kingdom, coming back and in a way taking a lot of abuse from the institutional church and some pressure and control, and being able to lay down the titles, the positions, any influence and authority that may have come from that, laying that down and then starting over. So there's a lot of character development that's happened well before any of us were introduced to Robert. Yeah, such an honor to work with people like Robert, actually.
So what are you learning about finding those sorts of leaders out there in Africa?
It's very seldom, Steve, that the fourth soil or the multiplier type person is led to faith in our ministry. We haven't seen that often, even in years past in working in Asia and here. We hope that these young men and women that are being led to faith will one day become that. But what we've seen more often than not is brothers and sisters who have been in the faith a long time, as long as any of us or longer. And the Lord has been shaping and molding them in various ways. I think with someone like Robert, he just has he has a way of counting the cost and saying yes to the Spirit of God when the Spirit of God tells him to do things that might be uncomfortable or unusual, or that his extended family and or friends within denominational circles would tell him is crazy. For example, if the Spirit of God tells him to just go to South Sudan with no contact, he did that, or to leave a denomination and to start a new work, or to jump on board with sort of this simple church starting in homes. He's just saying yes in many small ways, that are adding up to a lot of transformation of heart and a willingness to say yes in multiple ways. One story that I really feel like needs to be shown here is during the course of our relationship with Robert. It's been maybe 3 years now. I'm not exactly sure of the time frame, maybe a little longer. He, some brother in Nepal, in like on the border of India and Nepal, but in the Nepal side. I think very similar to Robert was fishing on Facebook one day and found Robert. I love this story. He found Robert, and it sounds like he may have been fishing for like financial resources in Nepal for the church work he was doing. And Robert said, basically something to the effect of silver and gold have I none, but I'll give you training, which is so interesting because, you know, that's of course how our relationship started.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, for the last year and a half, Robert has been training this brother, and I think multiple brothers now in Nepal, in the things that he knows how to train, which is pretty much everything that we do at this point. He is training on WhatsApp. So he has regular rhythms of training them. Well, so now you fast forward, this training is going on. He gets reports that they've started 2 house churches, maybe some other starts going on somewhere in Nepal. And he feels the Spirit of God saying, you need to go visit them. So, you know, he's an African in a, you know, basically was living in a village. The financial resources are very meager. You know, he's working hard to put food on the table and clothes on the kids, and 7 kids. So you can imagine, right? We just coached him into, no, if the Lord's telling you to do this, he's going to provide. So, you know, we all prayed about it. He began to pray over it and began talking to this network of emerging churches that he's working with to help sponsor him to go and visit the work in Nepal. Well, it took a lot of convincing. You know, in fact, he said several of the churches and leaders, these house churches and their leaders said, that's not your job. That's the job of the white man. Because that's the model they'd always seen, right? This is what white people do. They come and they share the gospel and they start work. And so he said, no. And actually, it was a great teaching point. So he's casting vision, walking through what is discipleship? What is the Great Commission? Who is the Great Commission for? Is it just for the Westerners who come in? Or is it also for every believer? And so he was able to raise not all of the money, but a lot of the money from these really grassroots house churches, very skeptical people about, you know, actually sending an African to do missionary work. So he went. This is about a month ago, actually. He went to Nepal. Actually, this is actually really full circle for me. The cheapest way to go from Kenya to Nepal was through New Delhi, India. Amazing. So, you know, June and I used to live there. We have great friends and partners there. And so we were able to get him like a 7-day layover in New Delhi, where our Indian brothers and sisters treated him like royalty. They picked him up. They took him, you know, to see MBB, Muslim background believing house churches, and some of the UPG work and the UUPG work. And then they had him training their leaders. There's like these beautiful pictures of this tall African man training all of these Indians. And then, of course, all of the cultural things he learned and the shared heart for seeing no place left. He learned so much. He was there 7 days or so, maybe 5 days in India. Then he went to Nepal, and where they received him, and he began training in 2 different locations to start house churches and to multiply house churches in Nepal. When he came back, again, it was like 3 weeks ago when he returned. The report he gave to our team was so beautiful. Like this connection of, you know, brothers and sisters who are pursuing no place left. Like skin color was irrelevant, financial situation was irrelevant. Like they were just brothers and sisters pursuing the same task. And then he came back with this amazing heart. He had never been anywhere where people hadn't heard, in some perspective, they haven't heard of Jesus, right? Like had no knowledge. And it just blew his mind. The people, the lostness of India and Nepal both blew his mind. He just never conceived that there was no access. And so he came back with a very heavy heart for those places and for places where people have zero access. And so from that, he's been able to take that vision back to his own people, that we have to work hard here because we need to send people to where there is no access. This has to happen. This is part of the Great Commission, and we have to be a part of it. Really quite a beautiful experience, Steve.
God used Justin and Joy to make it possible for me. It's by, I think the Holy Spirit was leading them to show me the way, and also to have open hearts. And in fact, I didn't know much of many things. I was messing sometimes, but they were faithful to me. Sometimes I was struggling. I was like a slow learner, but they were faithful because they see something in my heart that this person is a right person to move forward. So they were faithful to me. They were patient to me, and they tried so much. Most of the time, reaching, calling me, telling me, do this and this. You can do this and this, until I come to the right position now. That's what's like. I'm on the right road, and it was very simple now to move forward and do everything.